This video is to help you with 2.2.6. Is there an easier way multiplying mixed numbers? So first of all, we're going to look at 296. You can multiply these fractions using the idea of rectangles. In other words, doing 5/6 of a rectangle, shading that, and then coming through and shading 7/8 and looking for the area of overlap. Or Audrey's method, as we know, is the method we're used to using, which is that you can multiply and then simplify, or simplify, then multiply. Now, keep in mind for something like C, you cannot simplify this because it has to be a numerator simplified with a denominator. In other words, the 6's cannot simplify, 7's cannot simplify, because it would have to be a top number simplified with a bottom number. So if you multiply across, you're just going to get 36/49. However, for something like F, you could simplify the 8 and the 14 by dividing both by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 14 divided by 2 is 7. And you could simplify the 3 and 9 by dividing them both by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Okay, so it's a little bit messy. Hopefully you can still read it. But basically, then once you're done simplifying as much as you can, then you can multiply across. So 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 7 is 7, but that is improper. So we would change it to a mixed number. Remember, if you've forgotten how to do that, you take 12 divided by 7. It goes in one whole time, so that's your whole number. 1 times 7 is 7. Subtract, you get 5. So you end up with 1 5/7, right? If you had not simplified before you multiplied, you would have 72 over 42. Then you would have had to simplify to 12 over 7 and then change to the mixed number. So by simplifying first, you're avoiding working with these very large numbers. They also are reminding you that you could use the idea of an area rectangle if you're multiplying mixed numbers. So if you're taking 3 1/2 times 1 1/2, you could break this into 3 plus 1/2 times 1 plus 1/2, and then do the components inside. 3 times 1 is 3. 1 times 1/2 is 1/2. 1/2 of 3 is 3/2 or 1 1/2, and 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. And then you could add those parts together to get the total area. Okay. So the sum then would be 3 plus 1/2 plus 1 1/2 plus 1/4. You would need to get common denominators. You also end up with an improper fraction, so you end up changing it to the mixed number 5 1/4. The other way, however, you could do it, and we have talked about this before, but as a reminder, is you can change these to improper fractions and then multiply. So 3 1/2 times 1 1/2. Remember that the way to change from a mixed number to an improper fraction is to take the denominator 2 times the whole number 3, so that gives you 6, plus the numerator 1, that gives you 7, so that's where the 7 is coming from. 2 times 3 plus 1. And then that goes over the original denominator of 2, so 7/2. 1 1/2, same process. 2 times 1 plus 1 gives you the 3 over the 2. And then you can multiply across. Again, you can simplify before you multiply, or multiply then simplify. In this case, though, you can't simplify anything because, again, the 2's can't. So you would get 21 over 4. 21 over 4 is, again, improper, changes to 5 1/4. So the idea here is this technique makes things much easier than having to do this technique. Now you might say, well, it didn't seem that much easier, but we didn't show the work. We could have gone back and shown the work of getting the common denominator and so forth. So this technique is easier. Sometimes people will say, can't we just multiply the whole numbers and multiply the fractions? Well, the idea of seeing the generic rectangle or the area model here shows you why that won't give you the right answer. If we did that, we would get 3 times 1 is 3. 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. So we would only get this portion of the answer. And of course, that's not the correct answer. And the reason then that it doesn't work is because, again, these other components have to be multiplied in as well. You can't just take 3 times 1, you have to take 3 times 1/2. You can't just take 1/2 times 1/2, you have to take 1/2 times 1 and 1 half times 1/2. And again, this area model shows that probably better than all my little squiggly lines here. But the idea is that every component has to be multiplied. So that's why when students typically ask, can't we just do it that way? The easier answer is, well, you just won't get the right answer. So that's why we show you this technique, because it is the most straightforward algorithm or method to find multiplication of mixed numbers. All right. So we will go ahead and talk about the homework on the next video. Thanks.